Welcome back to the Henster Kitchen. I'm Georgia, I'm the Happy Henster, and I'm glad that you're here with me today. Today we're going to make something that is near and dear to my heart. It is packed full of flavor, it is absolutely delicious, and it's made in your crock pot. Grillades and grits. I'm taking a chuck roast that I have already cut down. I've got probably 1.5 pounds here. You do want to trim it up, so any excessive fat, anything like that, go ahead and get that trimmed off. I have partially frozen my roast because I think it makes trimming it up just a little bit easier. But do take your time. Get off any big chunks of fat. You do want to leave some because fat is flavor. But you don't want just big hunks of fat. And now I'm going to cut this into some nice large chunks. It allows it to cook faster in your crock pot, which makes me happy because I don't like the whole waiting around for 8 hours. And then I'm just going to cut this in half again. In my bowl, I have 1 tablespoon of my favorite Creole seasoning, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of cracked pepper. We want to season our meat well for our grillades. So we're just going to take our seasoning mix, a nice pinch, and we're going to season from up high, letting it rain down over our meat, making sure that we're getting some on all parts. We're going to flip it over and do the same. So we're gonna just massage this around and make sure that we've got that nice Creole seasoning, salt and pepper just worked into all the bits and pieces here. You don't wanna lose a minute of that flavor. Now I've got 1/4 cup of just all-purpose flour. We're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna go over top, making sure everybody's got a good little coat. Let's flip them over, and we're going to do the same again. You get to get a little messy with this one. All right, I'm just going to dump the rest of this right over top. And now let's work that flour in on our meat as well. We're going to be browning this in a skillet before we go into our crock pot. If you happen to have one of those fancy dancy Instapots that you can brown in as well, you're 1 step ahead of us. So just make sure you've worked that flour on all sides of your meat. Not only is it going to give a beautiful crust on the meat, but once we add it to our crock pot and all of our juices, this will be a thickening agent. So we're going to end up making our own gravy while we're cooking. Okay, let's take this over to our stovetop. I've heated up my skillet to about a good medium-high heat, and I'm just going to do a little bit of olive oil in there. And now let's put in our meat. We're going to let this cook probably about 2 minutes per side. We want it to be nice and brown and crusty to give us as much flavor as it possibly can. Don't overcrowd your skillet. I've really got it a little bit overcrowded here. Definitely wouldn't want to put any more in here. We'll let that go for about 2 minutes, and I'll be right back. Let's give a flip and see how we're doing. Oh, beautiful. We've got a beautiful crust on here, and you can see my meat is just flipping without any issue. It's not stuck to the pan, which is another indication that we've gotten some good caramelization, good color, and it's ready to go. We're going to leave that for another 2 minutes, and we'll meet right back here. We've got a nice crust on both sides now. So I'm just grabbing my crock pot, and I'm going to put my meat right in the bowl. Now, we're not about to let all of this go to waste because you have a ton of flavor there. Now typically I would use about half a cup of wine in this. Unfortunately, I didn't have any red wine in the house, so I'm using just red cooking wine. And I've only got about less than a quarter of a cup there, I would say. So I'm also going to fill in with just a little bit of red wine vinegar. To our skillet, we're going to throw in 1 onion that I've chopped, 1 green pepper. Oh Lord, that smells good. Half of a red. You should always take your sticker off, however. Half of a red and half of a yellow. Now we don't want to forget about seasoning our vegetables. So we're going to do a pinch of salt, cracked pepper, about half of a teaspoon of thyme, half a teaspoon of oregano. That was probably more like a teaspoon. You don't have to be exact with those flavors. We're just adding layer upon layer. I'm adding just a splash of my beef broth, just to loosen it up ever so slightly in there. I'm gonna add in 3 cloves of garlic. I know what you're thinking. Georgia, you are overdoing it, but I promise you, I'm not. Let me move these things out of the way, and we're gonna add this to our crock pot. Let's add 2 bay leaves into our crock pot and about 1 cup of beef broth. Now, I use the low sodium. Anytime I'm cooking, I can always add my salt to it as I do my final taste testing. Can't take it away. We're gonna cook this on high in our crock pot anywhere from 5 to 8 hours. What we're looking for is for our meat to be so tender that it just falls apart. I do wish you all could smell the deliciousness coming out of this crock pot. We are back 6 hours later, and the roast is just falling apart. You see how it just shreds so easy and will be so tender? That's exactly what I was after. So I am gonna go through here and I'm gonna shred up all of my meat, and then we'll return it back to the broth to heat back through. While it's reheating, we're gonna get started on some grits. All right guys, we're over here at our stovetop. I have got 2 cups of water with 1 crushed clove of garlic in here. I have added 3 good pinches of salt. I want a good salty water for my grits. Now I use Weisenberger grits. These are stone ground grits. They are produced here in Kentucky and they are my favorite. I do recommend a stone ground versus using a quick cook grit. There is a huge difference in the flavor and the texture. A good stone ground grit is going to be nice and creamy. So now that I've added this to my water, I'm going to turn down my temperature. I'm stirring this in, making sure that there are no lumps that have formed. I'm quite happy with the way that's looking. As this cools down just a smidge more, I'm gonna put on my lid. I'm gonna take this on down to a simmer, and I will put on my lid and I'll let this simmer for about 15 minutes. Now I do like thicker grits. So as I said, I used 2 cups of water to 3/4 of a cup of grits. I will check this along the way because it's quite possible and really most likely that I'll need to add a little bit of water as it cooks so that it doesn't set up like a rock. Okay, there we go. We're gonna put our lid on and we're gonna let this simmer for 15 minutes. I checked my grits 5 minutes into its cook and it was already trying to thicken up on me. So I added about 3/4 of a cup of water, and I turned my temperature down a little bit further because I want it to just simmer. You don't want boiling, you don't want anything. And now we've got a nice texture So this is coming along nicely. We have about 5 minutes left to go. And then our grits will be ready for us too. We're at our 15-minute mark, and the grits have stayed nice and thick, but not too thick. But I don't want runny grits ever. So I'm gonna do a quick little taste test to make sure that our salt is good and that our grits are tender. Holy cow, that's good. Okay, we're gonna need to do another pinch of salt. We're gonna add some cracked black pepper. Let's make sure we're where we want to be. That is so good, it's just downright ridiculous. We're gonna put in a pat of butter and then maybe 1 ounce to 2 ounces of cheddar cheese. This is a mild cheddar. I have done this with Gouda as well, which is incredible. So I'm gonna stir that in, put my lid back on, and give this just a couple of minutes to let melt the cheese. Grillades and grits. I hope you all will give it a try, and I really hope you all will come back and comment and let me know what you think. Please like and share the video. You cannot believe how much that helps me out. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me again tonight, and I'll see you in the next video.